Hey everybody, how's it going? In this video, I'm going to be talking about docstrings. And docstrings is basically a documentation string. It's something that you use to document what you've done thus far for other people and for yourself in the future. Sounds similar to comments, right? But it's more than that. It's a bit more than that because if you want to create a function, so let's create a function right now, compute, and it has three parameters, x, y, and z, okay? And you want to return the result of multiplying x by y plus z. Okay, so this is a fairly simple function. All it does is basically it takes in three integers and it multiplies them together and returns the value, right? I want to be able to explain this function very briefly in every single aspect of it so that in the future I'll be able to understand it right away without having to look at the whole function and read it from the beginning. Because in this case it's a fairly simple function, but what if it's a more complicated function than that? So let's start by defining, not by defining, by writing our docstring. The docstring is written usually after the define, the function definition, right? After the function signature. So you come here and then you click enter and you have your quotation marks like this. So you have three quotation marks at the top and three quotation marks at the bottom, similar to the multi-line comment. In fact, this is the multi-line comment. Anything in between is considered comment, so it's not processed by the IDE. The first thing you want to do is you write a line explaining what this docstring represents. What does it do? So it takes in three values, multiplies the first two, and adds them to the third. I think this sums up what the function does very briefly, almost in one line. I'm just super zoomed in. And now that I've explained what this function does, so I'm just going to say this is the functionality. I'm going to move on to the keyword, the parameters. Right? So the parameters are x, y, and z, correct? So parameter number one, parameters, okay, there was a typo there. This parameter is a number of type integer, and that's it. That's all I have to say about this. It's just a number of type integer. Number, y is also a number of type integer. And z is a number of type integer. Sometimes you have more to say about the input or the arguments, and that's fine. You can write more, but just don't make it too long. So now that you've written the functionality, what it does, and you've also written about the different parameters, now let's talk about the return, right? What does it return? Well, it returns the value, the result, which is also an integer. Okay? Not all docstrings are written the same way. You'll find different people write docstrings in different manners, and that's completely fine, as long as it follows these three core principles, which is basically writing a function at the beginning that summarizes briefly what the function does, describes it perfectly and concisely, and then you have the parameters broken down, whether the parameters are optional, are necessary, the data types. If you have a certain note about this certain parameter, if something doesn't work. And finally, you have the result at the end. And the result is also explained. If you have a certain note about this result, you have to include the data type. You don't have to really include the data type, but it always helps the person who is working with you. And that's it. That is docstring for you. If you want to look at other ways of writing docstrings, I will include that in a link. And that's it for docstrings. See you in the next one.